if you can get as close to a full ride as possible. And even beyond that, the lower ranked schools might not only give you a full ride, but also give you a living stipend. They might also cover your books. So you could actually get paid to go to law school.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is the best lighting I can get in my friend's house. I'm sorry. But pretty much what you are about to see is me doing an interview with Steve Schwartz again from LSAT Unplugged. We actually talk about, how to choose a school, how to know which schools to apply to, negotiating scholarships, like a lot of general information that can help you in this process. I know it's been crazy right now with coronavirus, not being able to visit schools. So hopefully this video will help you make some decisions. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks so much for having me again, Latasia. It's nice to connect with you again. So for folks who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I run the LSAT blog. I also host the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast. And I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005.
2005. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's been quite a while, but I'm still at it, going strong. Love it, love the process. And there's always changes both to the content of the exam as well as the format with the recent digital LSAT we discussed last time. And there's also lots of changes on the horizon with law school admissions and, of course, recent changes given what's going on with coronavirus.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy right now. So hopefully we're able to go through some things in this that will help people make some of their decisions. Because I know for me, and I'm in this process right now where I'm deciding, I know for me, I was really banking on being able to go visit schools. So I guess I would ask you, if you're not able to go visit, my first question would be, what should be the biggest factor that you're considering then? Have you heard they're doing like a lot of the virtual ASWs, which I don't know if that's really going to help?
Of course. So visiting schools is a key factor in making a decision if you're able to, but it's definitely not the only one. I think part of the value in visiting schools is not only to decide whether you like the feel of the campus or you like the people there, because of course, especially on tours, especially speaking with admission officers, they're all going to be really nice to you. They're all going to show you the school in the best possible light, right? So if you were to visit a school, I would say, of course, try to get a real sense of what it's like talking with actual students on campus. Of course, right now, a lot of schools are closed. It's not possible to visit them right now. So I think you want to talk to admissions officers via phone or video chat just to ask them any questions you have and also to make a good impression on them. That's what I would say in terms of the benefits you could get from those conversations. In terms of factors to decide between when choosing a school, there's a lot of other things I would consider, and actually visiting a school wouldn't be at the top of the list because it's oftentimes not possible for many students, coronavirus or not, like traveling across the country, taking flights, uprooting yourself, going to hotels. It's not always easy. So I think there are a lot of other factors we could talk about. What are some of the ones that you considered?
So I think for me, of course, I was considering a scholarship, location, and then it was just going to be based off of fit. But I get what you're saying. Like, you can get the fit from looking at, a school's page, a school's clinics, or a school's like externships, just looking up, on ABA reports. Like, you can get a feel of stuff like that, of where they place in big law or federal clerkships. So those are some of the big things I was looking at: location, scholarships, and then big law placement, pretty much.
Yeah, I think those are all really important factors, as you mentioned, and we could talk about each one more specifically, but I think that those are relevant and you're able to determine them pretty easily whether you visit the campus or not. I recently, in the LSAT Unplugged Facebook community, I did a poll to ask students what were the most important factors they considered when choosing schools. Number one was getting the most scholarship money possible, and the second was the rankings. Now, the scholarship money, I think, as it was, should be first and foremost, specifically because you want to have the best possible employment opportunities available to you upon graduating. And if you have tons of student loan debt, you're going to be pretty limited in your options, and you'll have the incentive to choose the school, the employment option that gives you the most money, rather than what you necessarily want to do. And that student loan debt can follow you around for a very long time. And as you know, of course, it's non-dischargeable. So it's with you forever. And so minimizing that debt, I think, is really, really important. The ranking, yeah, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, so with that then, how do you feel? So I know I've heard some people say that, I think it goes like, if you get a 2/3 scholarship at a lower ranked school, you should go there instead of going to a higher ranked school with no scholarship. Have you heard that before?
I could certainly agree with the general principle. I would say, on average, a lower ranked school with more scholarship money is typically better than a higher ranked school with less, but it depends on how different are their rankings. Is one a top 14 and the other one a number 100? There are certain schools that I think are not worth going to, even if you could get a full ride, or even if you could get significant scholarship money, because the reputation of the school may not be great. The school could be in danger of closing, and their employment outcomes might not be that good. So each student, I think, will want to make their own decision about how important the scholarships are relative to the ranking. If you do want to practice big law, maybe scholarship money is relatively less important to you, and the reputation is more important. So the devil's always in the details.
Yeah.
But I would say students should consider scholarship money as well as rankings. But I think the U.S. News rankings in particular don't always emphasize the right factors, and students often consider them a little bit too heavily.
Okay, so what do you think like are some of the factors they should be considering then?
Yeah, sure. So I would say region is especially important. So a lower ranked school in your region may be a better choice than a higher ranked school elsewhere. And you see this especially when it comes to East Coast versus West Coast, let's say New York versus California.
Mm-hmm.
So UCLA may have a better ranking than Fordham, but Fordham may be a better option for those who want to practice law in New York specifically, because not a lot of UCLA law grads in New York City, people may not know UCLA law's reputation quite the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you consider when you do your own rankings, do you do like T14 and then T15 through T20 and then everything else is just, whatever? Or do you like, how do you divide your rankings up? Because I know some people say that like between 15 and 20 is the same, between like 20 and 30 is the same. And then everything after that is a little bit, you need to start looking a lot more closely at the decision.
Yeah, I would agree with that as a rough approximation. I think that number 7 and number 8 probably aren't that different. Number 20 and number 23 probably aren't that different. We're talking about fractions of a percentage of a GPA or 1 point difference in an LSAT median. There are so many other factors to consider that you might want to think about, like employment outcomes. One great resource for this is Law School Transparency. They basically take the American Bar Association's 509 reports, which include details on the employment statistics for recent graduates and bar passage rates, things of that nature. And Law School Transparency boils all of that down into very simple, easy to understand format, like graphs and charts and things of that nature. They really highlight it and distill it for applicants. So I would highly recommend everyone to go seek that out. We talked about regional reputation. We talked about employment outcomes. I also think you might want to consider the regional cost of living. There's a lot of costs aside from simply the tuition that you're paying. You want to look at urban versus suburban versus rural. How will that change what you actually need to spend over the course of law school and what you need to take out in terms of loans?
Exactly. How do you feel about negotiating scholarships? Do you have any tips for people that are trying to negotiate?
I certainly do. If anyone's relatively earlier in the process, the biggest thing you could do to get the most scholarship money possible is get a top LSAT score, keep your GPA up, because the higher those numbers are, the more competitive an applicant you'll be, the more law schools will be able and willing to offer you in terms of scholarship money. They have actual hard and fast cutoffs for scholarships, and a point or two can make a big difference. This is very numerical driven for them. So if you can walk in with the strongest application possible, the strongest numbers possible, that will make a big difference. Mm-hmm. Alternatively, if you're past that point, your LSAT is fixed, your GPA is fixed, and you've already applied, then I think it comes down to providing them with the evidence for why you need more money and why you deserve it. So if one school offered you more money than another, and their rankings are relatively similar and their reputations are relatively similar, you can go to the school that offered you less and say, can you match school A's offer or exceed it? And that'll be relatively compelling. I think you want to be nice about this, and you want to have reasons listed out specifically. You do the calculations and do the work on your end first. You could say, to attend your school, my expected cost of attendance would be XYZ, given cost of living in this region versus elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very good point. I think people don't take that into consideration. It's not just about the tuition, it's your actual cost of attendance. Like when you're living there, what is it really going to cost you to live there for a year or 3 years? I think people need to take that into consideration too. Because sometimes I know even in my situation, I've been accepted to a school, but I got less scholarship, but it's cheaper to live there. So it evens out. So I think people do need to take that into consideration for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, I did a class with Baylor Law School's director of admissions and financial aid a few weeks back, and she was emphasizing this point and saying, well, Baylor Law, regional law school in Texas, cost of living is not as high as New York. So don't go to them saying some New York school offered me this. Can you match it? Well, she would say to you, well, Baylor's a cheaper place to live. Mm-hmm. So you have to consider that. And I think it's ultimately important to see it from their perspective, evaluating you, and you coming in with a well-reasoned argument. And after all, you are a future lawyer. Provide them with evidence, provide them with reasons.
So you mentioned earlier that you feel like certain schools you shouldn't go to at all. What do you think is like a cutoff for a ranking, or do you think that's based off of what you want to do with your degree?
It is based in part on what you want to do with your degree, but I think anybody going to law school should ideally be looking to go out of it with a JD that, and then a job that requires a JD. So don't just say a law degree would be nice to have. It would boost your resume a little bit, but you want to do something totally different. Pretty much everybody wanting to go to law school should be looking to get a job that requires a JD upon graduation. So given that, you want to look at the stats for those schools, seeing what percentage of applicants have a job 9 months out that required a JD.
Okay.
Now, if we could talk about percentages, should 75% have that job? Should 60%? Should 80%? I can't necessarily give a hard and fast cutoff on that. I think it really comes down to each individual student's risk calculation in terms of what they want coming out of it. But I think if you're ultimately weighing and measuring different options, you want the one that has the higher percentage in that category. And also look at what you're investing in this. Do you have a family? Do you not have a family? Are you relocating? Are you not? Ultimately, it comes down to being a personal decision. Mm-hmm. But I think for most folks, schools that are unranked, definitely not worth going to. Schools that are non-ABA accredited, definitely not worth going to. And then for the lower ranked schools, I would say certainly don't pay a sticker and look to see if you can get as close to a full ride as possible. And even beyond that, the lower ranked schools might not only give you a full ride, but also give you a living stipend. They might also cover your books. So you could actually get paid to go to law school. That's a reasonable goal, especially if you're looking towards regional and lower ranked schools.
Exactly. So let's say that I'm just trying to throw out some scenarios here that I've had people ask me in my DMs or whatever. So like, let's say that someone has a full ride to a school that's like between 25 and 35. They have a full ride and a stipend to go to that school. But then they got into a T14, but the T14 is only offering like 10,000 or 20,000 a year. Would you suggest a full ride over that T14 school?
First off, that's a really great position to be in. This person would be certainly lucky to be there. So I'd say it depends in part on what the applicant's goals are. Like some schools are really good at getting students clerkships. Like if you want to go work for the government, like UChicago, for example, is especially known for that. And so if that is your single-minded goal, that's what you want to do, and you wouldn't be happy with anything else, then maybe you want to go to UChicago, which is a T14, even if they're offering you significantly less money. Alternatively, if you want to open your own practice or you want to work in a certain more smaller region, then the school ranked in the 20s or 30s might be a much better option. I think for most applicants, they would ultimately be better off taking the full ride. I think the cases where you really need the T14 name are more limited than students think. And if you think about it, getting the full ride, you're saving typically around $300,000 when you consider saving on tuition, saving on cost of living, potentially if they give you a stipend or something, and then also your opportunity costs from not working during that time. So if you could save at least a good chunk of that by going for free, you could invest that money in getting someone to help you with your resume, getting coaching on networking, for example, getting coaching on going in for interviews at law firms. So I think that money could be better spent to help you get the best job possible, even if you didn't have that name. I think that name gets people not nearly as far as they expect.
Exactly, especially if you already know where you want to practice. If you know you want to practice in Alabama or Georgia or Texas, it doesn't make sense to go to a T14 if you know for a fact you're not going to live there anyways. I strongly think that's true. So, okay. Any other general tips you would give in this entire process? Not just, choosing a school, but going, your 1L year, your LSAT, the beginning to the end. Any other tips?
Yeah, sure. One thing we didn't cover that comes to mind is scholarships, because scholarships, some are conditional and some are guaranteed. And there's a big difference between the two. Guaranteed means no matter what happens, no matter where you fall in the class on the curve, no matter what your GPA is, you've got that scholarship guaranteed. Most aren't like that. Some require you maintain a certain minimum GPA, and that's fairly reasonable, I think. But then in other cases, they're conditional where they say you must be in the top third of the class or the top 10% of the class to get this, but they offer that to many more than a third or 10% of students. Mm-hmm. So they're automatically dooming a certain number to fail. And everyone thinks they're going to be the special snowflake who gets the top grades. But realistically, you never know how hard it's going to be. Some folks are used to being a big fish in a small pond. They get to law school and it's a lot more competitive. So evaluate your offers with that in mind. Maybe you want to see if they can turn a conditional scholarship into a guaranteed one. And if not, maybe you don't want to choose that school. You also want to know, is that scholarship only for the first year, or for all 3 years. That makes a big difference. I also, as a side note, I wouldn't necessarily count on transferring. A lot of folks get into a school that they wouldn't love, but they say, I'll just go there for a year, do really well, and then transfer. There's a certain inertia once you're already at that school, and transfers are never guaranteed.
And do you have any opinions on class size? I know some people say that having a smaller class size is better, because I think right now Georgetown and Harvard have like 500 to 600 students, something like that in the class, or something like that. I've heard. I don't know the specifics, but do you think that should play a part in your decision?
Well, the larger the class is, the less chance you have of getting called on, right?
True.
Seriously, though, I think class size ultimately isn't that big a factor in terms of what you should be considering. I think the reputation and the scholarship money should play a much bigger role, as well as the employment outcomes. Most law schools are teaching the same stuff anyway. In most lecture settings, you're not going to get a ton of one-on-one interaction with the professor anyway. So I don't think that it's that big a deal, honestly. Most of the work is you sitting there in lectures, occasionally being called on, you do the readings, you ace your exams. Anything that can set you up for success on those factors is much more important.
Okay. One last thing I just thought about. What about grading? Do you think that students should look at how schools do their grading when they're determining a school? Because I know each school can have like a different grading structure.
That's a good question. The grading is not something I'm especially knowledgeable about. I would say you want to go to the school where you can get the best possible grades. And so that could actually be another reason to potentially consider a lower ranked school. If you did better on your LSAT than most of the school, then maybe you'll do better with your GPA at that school as well. And so being in a less competitive environment, you could rank relatively better. And being at the top percent of your class could help you much more with job opportunities after graduation, especially in that region.
Exactly. Even if it is a lower ranked school, that's a really good point. Yeah. So pretty much we both agree that location, scholarship, and ranking are pretty much like the top three things you need to be considering in the mix.
I would say so. Again, I would just add once again the recommendation to check out Law School Transparency, great nonprofit organization that really distills a lot of that statistical information for students in easy to digest format.
Okay, definitely. Well, I don't have any more questions. Did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, I think that's it for now. Again, I was really happy to chat with you once again on this. If folks need help with anything LSAT specific or law school admissions, I'm happy to help. Again, I'm Steve Schwartz over at the LSAT blog and the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast.
So I hope that video definitely helped you guys in making your decision. I know that it has helped me because, as you know, I'm also still trying to decide which school I'm going to go to. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave those down below, whether you have a question for me or for Steve. Of course, you can also go to his Facebook, Instagram, all of that if you have any questions for him. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of that, and I will see y'all on Sunday. Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.